All right, what's up, grassroots family, man? We back with another man. Um, Today, man, I'm gonna do a real quick one, man. Do a real quick live, man. I wanted to take a look at the the Tyreek versus Jake Lane. Jake Lane, if you don't know who that is, he's a JAN6er. Let me share screen real fast and give you a reminder of who Jake Lane is. Just for those you know who may not know. He's the guy that went down to Dallas or whatever to I guess do the White Lives Matter protests or whatnot that didn't turn out too well. But he is right here talking to Jeff Metcalf, the father of Austin Metcalf. And the father surprisingly, schooled him. So let's take a look at that real quick to get a reminder of who he is. So let's go. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's get right into it, man.
Playing here. Jeff, first of all, my entire heart rests in your hands. I would be in my position, not even as somebody that knew your son, but somebody that shares the same understanding. I grew up as a 17-year-old young white man too, and I grew up in fear of my life around black people because they were killing and robbing people around me all the time. And I don't know.
As you can see on this call right here, he was trying to placate to Austin's dad or whatever, but it didn't work. So let's take a little listen.
Understand, as I was a father, you could sit idly by and not condemn the culture that killed your son. There is an epidemic problem in this country, and your voice could be one of the loudest voices in this country, but you've chosen to recoil out of fear and continue the suppression. Why will you not stand with me and with the rest of the people? We're not calling for racial divide. We're not calling for hatred. We're saying 350,000 attacks on white people by black people a year in this country is wrong. Why can't you stand that and say with that? Maybe you can. Would you be willing to stand by me in a press conference or in an individual interview and talk about this issue that is larger than Austin at this point? God rest a beautiful young man's soul that would have been one of our strongest voices if he was still alive today.
Are you done?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, my turn to speak. You are part of the fucking problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. I do not condone anything you do. You do not have any fucking...
That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk. Of my son. Let me finish. I give you your time. You take my son's face off your website. I am not associated with you.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir. You are creating more Austin Metcalfs
Black
with your
man here,
weakness.
you are being weak. I gotta be honest with you about that, sir.
You're being weak. Condemn your son's killer and the culture that caused it.
Hey, Jeff.
That's the problem.
So as you can see right there, he really tried to placate to Austin's dad, but it didn't work. So I'm gonna go straight to the. So now that you got a refresher who he is, in case you didn't know who he was, that's him. Let me go to the. I got the audio. I joined Tariq at the tap in over there on X. So I was over there when Jake hit the panel, and I was surprised, but hell, he came right up, spoke his mind. They went at it. So we're gonna take a listen at that. And y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
On blacks. I grew up with four-wheel ride.
Hold on. So let's let it rock out, man. Let's listen to the audio, man. So they gonna go at it, man. So without further ado, man, let's go.
Fishing. I grew up with Second Amendment respect, meaning that guns were not willy-nilly, handled. They were we had to respect them. I grew up in a culture that didn't curse at people. We loved each other and we tried to take care of our community. And then when I look at inner city communities of predominantly black people. I see the project housing. We can get into systemic issues, but I see from the outside looking in, and then which I also moved into Spanish Harlem. I lived in Spanish Harlem. I sold hats on the street in Spanish Harlem, which was predominantly black, but it's still called Spanish Harlem. And I had a hat company called Harlem Pusher. I was part of that community, but I saw, in my point of view, a degenerate culture that glorified hip hop, fast money, prostitution, ball players, drug dealers, gun toters, and things of that nature.
Sir, white supremacist culture glorifies the Italian mafia, the Jewish mafia, drug dealers, Irish mafia, drug dealers, gun runners. Your community glorifies violence. It's always glorified violence and criminality, sir. You're not going to sit here and point your finger at us talking about we glorify violence. Everything about your culture is violent, sir. You glorify violence, and
I must say that that's true. That's true about this country, man. You know, black people do it in what, music. The other people do it in movies. So I mean, yeah, we go to the movies to see that. We buy those albums to hear that. You know, it is what it is. Let's go.
genocide, racial terrorism. You guys made movies. Some of your first blockbuster movies were about the Klan, Birth of a Nation, a violent terrorist organization, sir. They were your heroes. You're talking about we worship degeneracy? And if we're going to talk about hip hop, 80% of hip hop music is purchased by white people. When you go to Coachella and look at these big concerts with black artists and rappers, look at the audience. That's your community in the audience, sir.
Well, there's a difference between consuming a piece of content. Let's say, for example,
Hey, Tariq 100 on that one. If you look at the hands in the air at them concerts, you know, it's not my skin complexion that's out there the most. That's buying them tickets. You know. So they love it too. Let's go.
watching The Godfather, like growing up as a white kid in suburbia, watching The Godfather, but then having the actual culture act out and live upon those principles that we see in Hollywood movies. I just don't see the white American culture living out the principles of hip hop, living out the principles of Godfather mafiosa. I don't see either. I see
Slow down. Yeah, that stuff was based on real stories. That wasn't really fiction. Some of the mafia movies, Casino, Goodfellas, these are based on real people, sir. You guys glorify the Sopranos and all of that because that's a part of your culture, sir. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, in white supremacist society, there was a major crime wave of white criminals who you guys glorify to this day. You glorify Bonnie and Clyde. You glorify Dillinger. You glorify Babyface Nelson. You glorify all of those 1930s gangsters that were running around killing and robbing banks. These people are icons in your community to this day, sir. So you're talking
to this day
about us glorifying violence? Really? Really? We don't, black society, listen, we don't really glorify murderers in our society.
but the first thing that you said when I got on
Slow down. Who are the murderers that
Carmelo
black people,
Anthony, for one, to start, because you said
murder is a legal term. You can't say somebody murdered somebody until they convicted of it. That's a legal term. What he did was take somebody's life. Now, the debate is, was it self-defense or not? So that's what it is. Let's go.
We glorify.
I mean, there are many.
Name
But
them, sir.
I
I
want
just
to
named
talk
the
about
murderers in
Carmelo
your.
Anthony.
I just named the murderers in your community that you guys glorify and make heroes into. Not only that, every hero in white supremacist society is a degenerate. You can't find a hero that's not a degenerate, sir. And you talk about our culture? Look at white supremacist culture. Who are your heroes? Name one of your heroes who's not a degenerate murderer, rapist, slave owner, or dickhead. You name them, sir. Just
Well,
name one.
first let me talk to the first question you asked me as far as who is being glorified in the black hip hop community or the black community, which has been usurped by the hip hop part of it. You have Cardi B, who openly brags about drugging and
Cardi
attacking.
B is a Caribbean. She's not of our culture. That's somebody. She's a Caribbean.
And to hell with being a part of our culture, Cardi B ain't even black. Have you seen her parents? She not black. She no black. And see, that's the issue. You know, when they had Cardi B up there representing our culture, you know, trying to talk to the potential president or whatever. You know, that's the issue. She's not of us. That's it.
Sir, that's not our culture. You're proving my point, sir. You're proving my point.
Okay, so let's move on from there to
Hey,
Curtis
right.
Jackson. Curtis
Who?
Jackson,
What?
50 Cent. Okay,
Curtis
the
Jackson, who's a
the drug
businessman?
dealer, the man who shot up everybody. He's the
Who?
underdog. Hate it or love it, the underdog's on top,
Who did
and he's gonna
Curtis?
shine, homie, until his heart
Who
stops.
did 50 Cent shoot?
Recognize he know the lyrics. He know the lyrics. Well, I tell you, he know the lyrics. They know the lyrics.
He has bragged about shooting and stealing and robbing in every one of his rap songs, and God knows how many
Sir,
felonies he's committed in his
he
life.
didn't. If he shot somebody, he would be in jail for shooting somebody, sir.
No, he would probably be. I didn't mention anything about white birth rates, so I'm going to go backwards because it's easier to address that. And I attend very well. Thank God, I was a club promoter for 7 years, and that was that was a degenerate thing before I found Jesus Christ. But I've attended. I've definitely attended, probably way too much. God forbid. So let's digress from there. We're all here in the middle of the night when we could be.
Out doing what you did. This is white supremacy in white privilege. White privilege
No,
comes with white
Trump
supremacy.
pardoned many black people as well.
Who?
There were, I mean,
No,
my
no,
friend Cash Kelly,
yeah,
my friend Daryl Neely, my friend, what's his
not
name?
for
We called him the Colonel.
yeah, not for storming no damn, not from
Oh,
storming the
no, of
Capitol. You
course.
know,
The January
they
Sixers.
pardon
January
people. Yeah,
Sixers.
yeah, they pardon people for like having weed or some shit.
No. I'm talking about Black January Sixers. I know about maybe a dozen of them, plus other races as well too that weren't white that Donald Trump pardoned. As well. So these are real life conservative patriots that I would lay
But
down my
that
life
doesn't
for in an
negate the fact
instant.
that black people generally they
Philip
can't. You're
Anderson.
right. That black people can't do what, and these people don't really identify as black. Like Enrique Terrio, y'all try to say he's black. It's
No, he's Cuban.
right,
He's not. I didn't even mention his
right,
name.
right,
Honestly,
right.
I mentioned.
Honestly, that sound like a tether. That sound like somebody in any other situation. If you ask them if they black, they gonna say me no black. So, you know, they don't count.
Other people that do identify as
Right.
black that are black, that some of them come from some pretty rough backgrounds as
And no,
well.
most of them are Caribbean, by the way. Some of those people you name, they come from Caribbean backgrounds. They don't come from foundational Black American culture. But again, something you said that you said would like
I didn't name
no,
any
no,
Caribbeans. I named African Americans
yeah,
that were pardoned by Trump for
yeah.
being
No,
patriots.
but those people you name, some of those folks from my studies, they don't come from our lineage. They come from Caribbean backgrounds. Some of those people, they are technically African American, but they're not foundational Black American, meaning their lineage doesn't go back to slavery in this country.
That honestly sounds pretty racist, like black on black racism. And
How
actually, one
so?
of my
How so?
friends.
How so? No, no, no.
Well, I
How
got
so?
this. I have a very close friend of mine,
How
and
would
everybody
no,
on
no.
here.
So,
Well, I know, no, I'm about
we
to
get into
explain.
some anecdotal thing. Now, how is our lineage racist? I have a lineage.
Well, no, I'm saying so. First,
Yeah, that's the issue. You know why? is identifying with your ethnic group races. That's ridiculous, man.
Of all, I have a very close friend. Everybody knows him on here. His name's Dom Luker. He's 1.5 million on X.
Right.
Very smart individual.
Yeah, I did a video on Don Luker. Don Luker is a for sure a self hater. He was begging them people for approval. Look for that video I got on Don Luker. You know, so he a bootlicker for sure. Let's go.
And me and him have long talks on this. And actually, there's like this split in the black community about like what you said, ancestral or anecdotal, or people from I guess 400 years or plus more here, plus other people that are kind of coming in on the phrase of things. And there's like a split between like who's the realest black man in the room. So I don't know. You guys got to deal with that in your own community.
No. We don't talk like who's the realest black. No, that's white supremacists filtering. That's no. We didn't say nothing like that.
I mean, you're the one putting them down.
No,
you're the
I
one
didn't.
saying that
No,
they're
I
not
didn't.
as black as I am.
didn't say
is
nothing like that.
basically
So
what
we're
you're
not going to
saying.
do on white not say so. We don't do that. Don't do that. We don't do on white not. I didn't say anything remotely like that.
Well, so what is their credentials? They have the same skin color, melanin. They've been through hardships as well. If according to your point of views, why are they less, connected to the roots? Or, I don't understand where the internal racism comes from.
There is none because there is none. That's why you don't understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were putting them down as like a lesser party, not me.
I didn't say that.
You're saying those people aren't
I
ancestral
didn't say
blacks.
that they were lesser. Just because you're an immigrant doesn't mean you're less or anything. You're just an immigrant. I'm not.
Well, why would their
I'm
time in
not-
prison or what they
I'm
went
not
through?
We have different lineages, and that's okay. That's not even good or bad. You're the one.
Well, you're saying
you're
they're not
sir,
real blacks. They're Caribbean.
Okay, Jake, we don't do that, Jake. All right, you're gonna have to slow down. I know you're emboldened by being pardoned and all that stuff, but yeah, we don't do that. You got to slow down because you're talking over me. I don't like muting people, but you got to slow that down because now, it can be interpreted as disrespect. I can speak for myself, Jake. I don't need you to put words in my mouth. We don't do that. We don't do I'm white and I say so because you're trying to practice white supremacy right now. And doing I'm white and I say so, telling me I said something that I didn't say, that's you practicing white supremacy. That's the same thing as George Floyd died of fentanyl. Just saying shit.
Well, I mean, there's statistical data
Right.
that goes along with
Right.
that as far as the coroner's report
Which
does.
is not
But
true.
the question
Which is
before
not
we
true.
get
But hold
across
on,
this,
let me finish what I'm saying. I have a lineage that's unique from Caribbeans and continental Africans. That's not good, bad, right, or wrong. That's not bad or worse. I'm not an immigrant. I don't have an immigrant background. And people from immigrant backgrounds, a lot of times they're going to have a different outlook on certain things in certain parts of the culture than we do. And that's okay. You have a lot of people who are Caribbean or come from Caribbean backgrounds who don't look at white supremacists the same way as foundational Black Americans. That's why they will align with some of you white supremacists, and we won't. That's why you guys can get the Enriques and all of these people, because over in their homelands that you guys basically, your fellow white supremacists have decimated, you psychologically broke them, but you haven't psychologically broken us. So we don't do the one big Negro narrative. I'm saying that. Another thing I wanted to clear up that you said, you were like, yeah, we, in the last 40 years, you haven't been able to speak about black thugs and all of this. Sir, y'all have never not talked about black people and denigrated us. You've always denigrated us. In your movies, your media landscape, it's nothing but black stereotypes. Even in your reality shows, Cops, First 48, everything is about black thug imagery. Ronald Reagan in the 70s, he was promoting the whole welfare queen narrative. The Clintons in the 90s, they were pushing the thug criminal crime bill narrative. So you've always...
is there not some merit though there as far as
no
statistical data goes?
No,
like
because
why does the before I get muted again,
Yeah.
please. Why does the NCVS, the National Crime Victim Survey, which is a survey done by the FBI,
Mm-hmm.
talking and asking the victims? If you go on my website, Protect White Americans US, pwaus.com, I have a number of different statistics there. And they're from the National Crime Victim Survey talking about egregious black crimes just in general, but
There's no
that's
such
not
thing
what
as
I
black
focus on.
crime.
Well, so wait. So
Did you hear what I just said?
the
There is no such thing as black crime. What the hell is black crime?
crimes that inordinately black people are committing,
Which
such
is
as
what?
murder and
Y-
assault and robbery,
y'all do more than
that
nobody.
outside of their
Nobody
per
murders.
capita.
Nobody murders more than white supremacists.
That's not what the statistical data says,
Based
brother.
on lot,
Just simply
the white
based
supremacists,
on the National Crime Victim
sir. The
Survey.
white supremacists, your community carry out whole genocides.
I'm just looking at the statistical
I'm just
data,
looking at
and
history, sir.
there's
I'm
there's
looking at history,
53% of murders in this country
sir.
happen from a mere 6% of the population, which is black males.
50. So
That is an
how many?
inordinate. That is a 10-to-1 inordinate imbalance in the community. And I'm here not as a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
I am here as a noticer of statistics, as a man that loves the culture that I'm from, my own people, and saying, hey,
No.
why is the black culture being perverted
Okay.
to brainwash the black youth into wanting to hurt, murder, and steal from people? And I
That's
want
a
to create
projection.
a cultural integration.
Well, that's a projection, sir. What you're doing is projecting talking points. You're projecting your culture. You guys, your white supremacist community, you commit the most murders. Raw numbers. You not only commit the most murders, your violence is so normalized, it doesn't even get classified as murder. You get to be so
Y'all know he gonna hit it with the per capita shit.
violent, and your violence is flipped into self-defense. Because white victimhood has always been the justification for your innate violence. So you guys can go out and kill people and it doesn't even get listed as murder. Like white Hispanic George Zimmerman.
Like Daniel Penny sneaking up behind somebody. You know, that's self defense.
Damn near every white cop.
You know, that's not my opinion. That's theirs. They said that was self defense. So we all should play by them rules. Let's go.
Kyle Rittenhouse. They're not listed as murderers. This is your culture, sir. We get over police, you get under police. So those crime stats, you have to put them in the real context. You're not really classified as murderers when you kill. You get a green light to kill. That's how degenerate your culture is. Are you really at liberty to point fingers at black people when you have a degenerate culture where your crimes have been normalized? Like your rapes. Y'all were allowed to just rape people all willy-nilly and not even be punished
I
for
mean,
it.
are you talking about modern day stuff, or you're
Oh,
talking
I'm talking
about
just
when the white slave
in
owners
general.
would rape
Nothing
their
has changed since slavery, sir.
cattle?
Nothing has changed since
Yes,
slavery.
there's
Nothing has
there's
changed.
human
No.
rights, the civil rights movement.
Nothing has changed since Jim
Do you
Crow.
not remember
Yeah,
that
we
when
and
everybody
that
got
was
equal?
foundational black Americans forcing you to act like you had some damn sense. Yes, I remember the civil rights movement. We had to force you to act like you had some sense, and we had to get off in your ass and let you know these lynchings and rapes, that's not going to be happening like you think. So we were fighting back.
Actually, the complete opposite.
We-
It was done peacefully. Nobody got, quote unquote, got up in. I'm not even going to curse. That's not my style.
Nobody did
But
what?
it actually was done through peaceful civic
That's a
action
lie.
from a real Christian
That's
leader,
cool.
Martin Luther
Sir,
King.
yeah. That's one part of it. No, it wasn't. There was violence.
Come
So
on.
what you mean,
Oh,
come on?
man.
Why did you think they had the Kerner Commission?
So
No,
wait, so
slow down. Why did they have to have the Kerner Commission to ask why there were so many race riots and black people were whooping y'all asses all through the 60s? That's why they had to have a whole commission to study why we were whooping your ass up and down the United States, sir.
Please don't normalize muting me while I'm in the
But yeah,
middle of
but
making a
no.
point.
But we're gonna speak truth to power. You don't get to just.
Yeah, we are.
But
No,
don't. Yeah,
but so I came in
we don't
here.
do. I'm white, not
Let's
say
just
so. You said it was on.
okay, but I wanna address something. I did come in here to address
Okay,
black on white violence,
right.
and then you just glorified the fact that in the '60s, black people had to be violent or whatnot.
Because you were being violent towards us. We had the peaceful, nonviolent sector that was a part of the media apparatus, but behind the scenes, black people were turning up and getting the bullshit up out of here. So yes, you had to be forced to act right, sir, because of your violence, because of your raping, because of your lynching, sir. And now you've basically pawned the lynching off to law enforcement. Now you're trying to get your vigilantes to do the lynchings and things for you, and people are pushing back from that. So the real degeneracy is in white supremacist culture, right?
I can definitely not say that. I'm seeing a man that is glorifying violence, and compared to a man here who has actually committed political
What you
violence as far
have.
as in self defense of my
No,
country.
well, yeah, and
Yes,
that
and I'm not here glorifying
right.
it.
Everything that white supremacists do, it's all self-defense. Every act
Well,
of
no, I mean
violence,
there's a Second
right?
Amendment. There's a
Every
Second
act of
Amendment
violence you
to
do,
attack
right?
tyranny, but
That's how white supremacy works.
But it immediately doesn't apply to us. You know, like I say, why didn't Carmelo Anthony get that second thought? You know, that's all I'm saying. It don't go both ways.
Everything is self-defense. The white supremacists, because you feel like your birth rates are so low that you're not going to survive. Everything is about survival. And everything you do, violence, rape, murder, mayhem, thievery, is all under the guise of self-defense. That's a degenerate culture to have, sir, right? Hmm?
I'm muted, so I can't
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
you. You're
I hear you. I
normalizing
hear you. I
muting
hear
me.
you, sir. We hear you. We hear you.
So I just don't see what you're seeing in white culture. When I hear white culture, right, as a white man who grew up in white suburbia about 2 hours north of New York City, um, I grew up with soccer moms. I grew up with four-wheel riding, fishing. I grew up with Second Amendment respect, meaning that guns were not willy-nilly, handled. They were we had to respect them. I grew up in a culture that didn't curse at people. We loved each other, and we tried to take care of our community. And then when I look at inner city communities of predominantly black people, I see the project housing. We can get into systemic issues, but I see from the outside looking in, and then which I also moved into Spanish Harlem. I lived in Spanish Harlem. I sold hats on the street in Spanish Harlem, which was predominantly black, but it's still called Spanish Harlem. And I had a hat company called Harlem Pusher. I was part of that community, but I saw, in my point of view, a degenerate culture that glorified hip hop, fast money, prostitution, ball players, drug dealers, gun toters, and things of that nature. That
Sir, white supremacist culture glorifies the Italian mafia, the Jewish mafia, drug dealers, Irish mafia, drug dealers, gun runners. Your community glorifies violence. It's always glorified violence and criminality, sir. You're not going to sit here and point your finger at us talking about we glorify violence. Everything about your culture is violent, sir. You glorify violence and genocide, racial terrorism. You guys made movies. Some of your first blockbuster movies were about the Klan, Birth of a Nation, a violent terrorist organization, sir. They were your heroes. You're talking about we worship degeneracy? And if we're going to talk about hip hop, 80% of hip hop music is purchased by white people. When you go to Coachella and look at these big concerts with black artists and rappers, look at the audience. That's your community in the audience, sir.
Well, there's a difference between consuming a piece of content. Let's say, for example, watching The Godfather, like growing up as a white kid in suburbia, watching The Godfather, but then having the actual culture act out and live upon those principles that we see in Hollywood movies. I just don't see the white American culture living out the principles of hip hop, living out the principles of Godfather mafioso. I don't see either. I see.
Slow down. Yeah, that stuff was based on real stories. That wasn't really fiction. Some of the mafia movies, Casino, Goodfellas, these are based on real people, sir. You guys glorify the Sopranos and all of that because that's a part of your culture, sir. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, in white supremacist society, there was a major crime wave of white criminals who you guys glorify to this day. You glorify Bonnie and Clyde. You glorify Dillinger. You glorify Babyface Nelson. You glorify all of those 1930s gangsters that were running around killing and robbing banks. These people are icons in your community to this day, sir. So you're talking about us glorifying violence? Really? Really? We don't, black society, listen, we don't really glorify murderers in our society
You wait,
like you
did you
do.
just but the first
Who are
thing
the
that you said
murderers
when
that
I
black
got on
people, slow down, who are the murderers that black
Carmelo
people,
Anthony,
no,
for
he's,
one, to
that,
start, because
no,
you said
no, that we glorify.
there. I mean, there are many,
Name
but
them, sir.
I
I
want
just
to
named
talk
the
about
murderers in
Carmelo
your
Anthony.
I just named the murderers in your community that you guys glorify and make heroes into. Not only that, every hero in white supremacist society is a degenerate. You can't find a hero that's not a degenerate, sir. And you talk about our culture? Look at white supremacist culture. Who are your heroes? Name one of your heroes who's not a degenerate murderer, rapist, slave owner, or dickhead. You name them, sir. Just name
Well,
one.
first let me talk to the first question you asked me, as far as who is being glorified in the black hip hop community, or the black community, which has been usurped by the hip hop part of it. You have Cardi B, who openly brags about drugging and
Cardi
attacking.
B is a Caribbean. She's not of our culture. That's somebody. She's a Caribbean, sir. That's not our culture. You're proving my point, sir. You're proving my point.
Okay,
Card,
so let's move on from there to
thank
Curtis
right.
Jackson. Curtis
Who?
Jackson,
What?
50 Cent. Okay,
Curtis
the
Jackson, who's a
the drug
businessman?
dealer, the man who shot up everybody. He's the
Who?
underdog. Hate it or love it, the underdog's on top,
Who did
and he's gonna
Curtis?
shine, homie, until his heart
Who
stops.
did 50 Cent shoot?
He has bragged about shooting and stealing and robbing in every one of his rap songs, and God knows how many
Sir,
felonies he's committed in his
he
life.
didn't. If he shot somebody, he would be in jail for shooting somebody, sir.
No, he would probably be. I didn't mention anything about white birth rates, so I'm going to go backwards because it's easier to address that. And I attend very well. Thank God, I was a club promoter for 7 years, and that was that was a degenerate thing before I found Jesus Christ. But I've attended. I've definitely attended, probably way too much. God forbid. So let's digress from there. We're all here in the middle of the night when we could be attending. So don't don't
Right,
point fingers when you're also here at
right,
the same hour as me.
right.
Anyway,
But again, but
um,
my thing is this: you the
well,
whole
let me go
scale.
backwards through the question so I can at least address that. January 6th to me was a peaceful protest, and that was escalated by. And so, first of all, this is a huge bisection, and we've actually joined. We've joined hands with some Black Lives Matter leaders, like Mark Fisher, from the founder of the Black Lives Matter Rhode Island chapter, because January 6th was a mass police brutality event. And we know that inside both of our communities, that is a huge button issue. And we've actually been able
No,
to lock
no,
hands with different members of Black.
no. Yeah, y'all only try to say it's police brutality because yeah, a black officer had to put some hot rocks up in some of your folks. So now it's police brutality. No. No, no, no. Oh no, no. Oh, Michael Bird had to do
So
it. Oh, Michael Bird had to do what he had to do, didn't he?
no, I mean she was a 5'2" woman with American
Yeah.
flag wrapped around her. Why
Yeah,
would
who was
why would
breaking in
deadly
a
force be?
breaking in a Capitol? Yeah, y'all sat up here and folks
Hey,
died that day.
I mean, God forbid.
Listen, the fact that y'all listen, you talk about violence. The fact that y'all had a violent insurrection, a lot of people died that day. Shot, heart attacks, people died that day. And you guys get to get out of jail and walk around and pop your collar. And you want to talk about violence in the black community? You guys aren't listed as murderers. If black people stormed the Capitol and anybody died, they would all be listed as murderers. It would be an all-in law put on them. The murders would be put on them. You guys are walking around out here chilling on Twitter.
Black people did storm the Capitol. Dozens and dozens and dozens were arrested. My
No, it wasn't.
brothers that I
No,
love
no,
very
no,
much.
no. Dozens of
Um,
not dozens of black people. You had a
yes,
handful of Sambos out there with you.
I can
You
name
had a
you
handful of
James
Sam.
Delisco Beeks.
Okay, slow down. You had a handful of Sambos out there with you guys, and some of them
Race.
got some the strictest punishments, by the way. That's it. That's another thing that was very interesting. The black ones got some of the
That's
strictest
complete
punishment.
fabrication.
That's not a
My guy that was on
fabrication.
my podcast today, James Delisco Beeks, was the only one acquitted from January 6th. He's black. He got acquitted in the DC courtroom. Do you want to know why? Yeah, I think you can answer that question, my friend.
You
So
talking about
don't make up, yeah, but just don't fabricate stuff. You have no frame of reference to say that black people got the largest sentences because that is completely false. It makes no sense. White people, by and large, got destroyed in the DC courtrooms by a majority
No, they
black
didn't.
jurors.
No, they didn't. No, they
Of
didn't.
course we did. I was looking at 30
Sir,
plus
y'all were
years.
getting slaps on the wrist anyway. Half y'all were damn near out of jail anyway. The ones who did get convicted, y'all were getting slaps on the damn wrist for that. Y'all were getting the equivalent of a damn jaywalking ticket. Nobody did no real serious time anyway. The only one who was doing some serious time was Enrique. People like
So
them.
I'll give you that. We have David Dempsey, white man, 20 years sentenced to prison. Rufio, Ethan Nordine, 17 years. Joseph Biggs, 18 years. Dominic Pizzola, 10 years. Peter Schwartz, 14 and a half years. They were hitting us with that book. They were destroying us. You have to understand that. All white men given decades in prison for they're not even injuries on these guys' indictments. They were literally trying to crush us. And they did, but God saw us worthy to bring us through that Red Sea and part that Red Sea and bring us out to the freedom. We were enchained by that Pharaoh, that DC leftist swamp, and we got out. It was a blessing from the Lord, literally a miracle that
Sir,
you could all
okay,
witness.
family, I want y'all to listen. Okay, everybody look this up. It was like over 1,000.
See, I think Jake Long trying to cosplay as a little Jesse Jackson or something like that. He trying to play in our face right there with that a little bit, in my opinion. He on some bullshit with that, man. But let's go.
People that got sentenced. All right, it was about 1,000, a little more than 1,000.
1,600 people
Right.
were arrested for January 6th.
The average sentence for you guys was 2 years. Most of the sentences were like 120 days, like 4 months. Literally, these dudes were getting slaps on the wrist. Don't let this guy sit on the phone and lie. Yeah, now some of the notable, you named the notable ones, like, yeah, some of the guys who got Joseph, some of the guys who were organizing it, like Biggs, and all of those guys, and Enrique. Yes, they got larger numbers, but for the most part, these guys were getting literally jaywalking sentences. It
Because they
wasn't
were
good.
literally jaywalking.
Yeah.
They literally
Right.
went. Most of the 95% of the people that were charged from January 6th
Right.
did not do anything but enter the Capitol and leave without touching
Yeah.
an officer or touching anything, a piece of property in there.
White
And so, of course,
supremacy,
those people got
white
lesser.
privilege. Right. It's called white privilege and white
No,
supremacy.
every
Welsing,
single
let's get
day.
Welsing, hop on Welsing. Let's get our sister Welsing. Oh, where'd she go? Whoa, Welsing. Okay. I wanted to get our sister on here. She's a very thorough sister. I wanted to get her on here. But yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of white now say so, which is I'm
Well,
not shocked. It's nothing more than a
Tarek,
white now say so.
I'd love to say goodnight and say a short prayer over the audience, like 30 seconds. In the name of Jesus Christ, Lord God, bring healing to our communities, lift us up, make America one nation.
Nah, we gonna stop that. We not gonna let them pray over us now. We gonna stop that. But yeah, that's all I got of the debate. I think you can catch the full debate on TARIQ channel. I think he got about an hour of it, but it might be some more stuff on his. But yeah, what do y'all think, man? In my opinion, Tyreek cooked on it. I'm just saying, and I ain't even being biased. He cooked on that. You know, I think Jake Lang was really on some troll shit, but you know, it is what it is. But he got cooked. You know, let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And that's it for me, man. We out of here.